So hello and welcome to my episode 1 of the Yellow Turban stream for Total War 3 Kingdoms. I've been thinking about doing this for a while, years in fact. I've always loved the Total War series, and I've always wanted to enter into the online community and see what I can offer, see what I can bring to the table, so to speak, with my limited expertise of history and historical figures. I do have a degree in history from the University of California at Santa Barbara, UCSB. Go Gauchos, if there's anyone listening out there. A lot of my work focused on Middle East or ancient Rome or ancient Greece. Didn't really get a chance to specialize in China, although I have done a brief study. I think every military historian knows the art of war. But they may not be acquainted with the other Chinese classics. And to that end, we shall begin our new campaign of the Three Kingdoms. These are, of course, the main players: Cao Cao, Liu Bei, Sun Jian, Gong San, Huang Shao. These are quite famous characters in the book, The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, as well as the Dynasty Warriors, a series of video games. If you ever played that, that was Dynasty Warriors 3 was a big part of my childhood growing up. Me and my brother used to play on PlayStation 2. These, of course, are our governors for the Han Dynasty, the dynasty that will fall. The Azure Sky is already dead, if we have anything to say about it. These are outlaws, of course, bandits. Very interesting gameplay-wise. We might do Zhenjiang gameplay later, so stay tuned for that. I guess no country can really avoid criminals or bandits, especially not 190 AD China. And these are, of course, us, the main faction for Yellow Turbans. Peasant Rebellion, very religious. You can see the Taoist symbols here and here, representing the unification of religious and political practices. We're going to be going with Huang Shao, wielder of the Heavenly Way. I like the Heavenly Way the best. There's 3 books that are used in this game. I believe the actual Way of Great Peace had about 5 or 10 books. I'm not quite sure. Many of them were lost. I think about 60% of the text was lost to history. But the surviving ones have recently gone through their first translation into English about 4 years ago. And I have that on order, and I'm waiting for that to come in. When it does arrive, we may see some readings from it as we play through the campaign. We should be very excited. I think the reason they picked the land, the heaven, and the people is historically Zhang Jie, the starter of this rebellion, or the General of Heaven, or the Great Teacher, he chose the General of Heaven as his title and gave the General of the Land and the General of the People to his 2 brothers. So we shall be starting off.
Draw the many together as a whole.
For Huang Shao, there can be no compromising his beliefs. There is only the way of the yellow sky. All those opposed will be rent asunder.
Alright, so the Yellow Turban philosophy stems from Taiping Jing, Way of Great Peace, which states that harmony between man and heaven can only be achieved by exercising evil omens. So this is a reference to their mass healing ceremonies, where groups of people would come together, including women and people that were like uncivilized, I guess considered barbarians, and they could confess their sins. And that was believed in the Taoist medical practice to heal them as a sort of faith healing. It might have been placebo or, real magic, depending on how Taoist you were. But the right of rebellion belongs to the people, and Huang Shao shall exercise that right to overthrow a corrupt and unworthy dynasty. So, typical peasant rebellion, quite communist actually, a deeply populist movement, as reflected in his population growth. Melee evasion for melee infantry. He has starting with a virtuous outrider, general type of champion. Very nice. great masters of archery. Talented individuals, we're going to get more research rate and character experience, research and wisdom. And yep, and research rate up, satisfaction up. Sounds like good. China must be purified. I think we can agree.
Embers rise, stark against the night. The tyrant Dong Zhuo wields the flames of destruction. Luoyang burns. Chaos ignites as the power of the eunuchs is crushed.
This is the opening features of
In the pyre,
the Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
hand
We are playing on
falters.
romance mode, by the way.
As
I
the
find this to
old
be more
ways,
entertaining,
the corrupt ways die.
more features. I think it's the way it's
A
meant to be
new
played.
flag is raised. Huang Shao can wait no longer. The people must be led to a new future.
I love that 3D art style, 3D parallax.
China is in turmoil. The
Beautiful
great
choice for
empire
the
of the
art
Han,
department here.
stretching back ages
I love
beyond
the
counting,
heavy ink
is being
brush
devoured
strokes.
by corruption. The yellow turbans, thousands strong, began raising their banners in rebellion
I
and
believe
seizing
at this
commanderies
point,
across the
the Han
realm.
Empire, stretching back
In
ages beyond counting,
response,
like they did count
Generals
their
loyal
empires.
to the emperor rose up
Pretty sure they had
and put
records
down the
from
rebellion.
the Warring States period,
Yet despite the victory,
which would be
the
like Sun
chaos
Tzu's
only grew.
Art of War, the
With
36
the corruption
stratagems.
at the very heart of the empire, the loyal generals stormed the imperial
As well
palace
as many of the writings
and
of
killed
Confucius
the
that
10
this
eunuchs,
Taoism would be
the
based on.
source of China's ills. In the madness,
Of course, Taoism is slightly
the
distinct
warlord
from
Dong Zhuo
Confucianism.
seized the emperor. With the great warrior Lü Bu at his side, none dared oppose him. In response to Dong Zhuo's brazen display, treason some call it,
Interesting.
A
When you play as Dong
coalition of
Zhuo,
warlords
he calls
rose
everyone
up,
else treasonous.
led by the charismatic
I guess the
Huang
matter
Shao,
of perspective,
to
treason
save
is.
the Han. Faced with united opposition, Dong Zhuo retreated west to his stronghold of Chang'an, razing the old capital Luoyang to the ground as he fled. It is now the year 190 CE, and the coalition has all
Interesting
but collapsed.
that they choose CE or Common
Warlords
Era
on all
instead of AD.
sides have seen opportunities
Historiography
to build
is
their own
kind of going
fortunes
through
from the
a
chaos.
conversation
Yellow
about
turban
what is more
remnants still
correct.
stalk the lands,
People are interested
seeking
in
the age of the yellow
non-Christianizing
sky,
the
whilst
timekeeping
soldiers of
for our
fortune
history,
feel the change
prefer
of fate
the Common
on
Era,
wind, and strike
instead
out on their
of
own.
Anno Domini.
The scales shift, and China
Personally, I use
hangs
both.
in the
I use
balance.
either, whichever my professor prefers, I suppose. Alright, so the Yellow Turbans. So this is kind of a reference that the Yellow Turban Rebellion was at its height, should have been like 350,000 followers in 182 AD, or CE. And now, after the suppression and a series of losses, we are left with only a handful of Yellow Turban sympathizer outposts.
The capital is cinders, my lord, burned by Dong Zhuo.
此等弄权乱臣，妄图改天篡命。如今洪水肆虐，恶殍遍野，实乃天怒人怨之兆。
A coalition
famine and
of
floods are a
warlords
sign
has
of heaven's
risen
displeasure.
against the
In
tyrant.
Confucianism
他
and
们亦是
Taoism,
我的敌人，汉室之中以公谋私、
every
贪
corrupt
腐
Han
堕落
official
之
must be
徒，
opposed.
皆不能留。
So the corruption that he's talking about
The
as
Han
creating
lands in the
floods
southeast may be vulnerable, my lord. We could
and
start
famines
there.
is an example
百
of
姓苦不堪言，定
the
要有
leaders
人
losing the
拯
mandate
救
from
黎
heaven,
民
which is
苍生。
the divine right to rule. If you study
is time for the
European
yellow sky
politics,
to
you'll
rise,
see
Lord
that in
Huang Shao.
absolutist monarchs
You
up
must
to
carry
King Louis
China to a
XIV
new future.
invoke, the divine right to rule as an indication of their sacred authority. making them still more unquestionable by the peasantry by binding their political authority and power with religious authority and power. And in this way, this is a priest sect, or a healer turned priest sect, militarizing itself against what they perceive to be, and what indeed very well may be, corrupt political action. This is why it's one of the most interesting factions to play as. It's also one of the most difficult, because your enemies are all pretty much everyone that isn't you. Alright. Destroys the forces of the old ways. Defeat an enemy force. We're about to do that right now. Reform. Picking reform. We already start with Archer's Discipline. Archer's Discipline is a great unlock for us early on because bows are so strong in this game, as well as crossbows especially can really destroy enemy units. It's time for the yellow sky to rise, Lord Huang Shao. You must carry China to a new future. So I believe, the rebellion was kicked off with the phrase or a pamphlet that says, "The azure sky is already dead. The yellow sky shall soon rise." Forget the rest of the quote there. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. Yeah, when the year is Jai Zai, there will be prosperity under heaven. So, that's kind of, one of the references to the sky, heaven, mandate of heaven. It's all connected to Taoist and Confucianist Chinese religion of all things are connected to the stars, including your ancestors, which leads to ancestor worship, and Taoism, which is the unification of all things, can be seen in the heavens. Many different religious sects prop up, claiming that one of the elements is better than the others, or that balancing of all the elements is better. There's one that's one of the priests is that heaven is the best. So we could roleplay as that by taking a number of heaven things, kind of maxing out the heaven tree before we go on to the others. Although we do leave behind very important things for the practical side of things. Campaign movement range could be very nice. But I'd like to talk about this. Is not heaven's reason truly like stretching a bow? The high it brings down, and the lowly it lifts up. Those who have abundance it depletes, and those who are deficient it augments. So, militarily, in military history, the bow is one of the best weapons for people that are poor, because if you learn to use it, you can kill people that are much, much richer than you, in the sense that they're more educated in combat. Much of knight's training is with the sword. Same with samurai. The bow can be very expensive and, obviously a beautiful art unto itself that you can go forever. And, Zen archers will be the first to tell you that the bow can be perfected in many ways. But, a unit of peasant archers in this world can kill, very, very expensive units. And I think that leads to that kind of democratization of power, or military power. In the sense that one unit of poor people can take down, as much education and wealth and influence as some of the most highly trained warriors that could possibly exist.
You will be joined by reinforcements in battle.
Alright, so after our first turn, we're probably gonna break it up into a series of parts for some of our viewers to more easily access. I just wanted to give this quick, kickoff to see, how the game works, how the stream works. going to be deploying close to my reinforcement forces
Your
here.
staff have provided you with a strategic map of the battlefield.
If you notice, I have guard mode always on because I don't like my units moving without me telling them to. This just means that if they're fighting someone and that person runs away, they'll follow them. If you're an archer and you're shooting someone and they move beyond your range, you'll move up to keep them in your range. That means that your archers can sometimes find themselves in front of your infantry line when you don't want them to if you're not paying attention, and that can be really hurtful for you. Fire at will I always have on, but I have skirmish set to automatically off, and I recommend this partially for new players. Just because in skirmish mode, your archers can end up places you don't want them to be. They can be pushed around by the AI, they can go way back off from your lines, places that you can't defend them from. They can move themselves beyond the support of your other troops, which can be very harmful for you. Looks like we have contact with the enemy. I have everything on in the UI just because I like to see almost everything. I don't like things to be hidden from me. I think we'll take this duel. It looks like we can absolutely win it. His strength is negligible. Win before 130 to get the following effects. So winning a duel appears to have some larger effects for your army in general. I guess for the rest of that battle. So this is Huang Shao. He's our veteran. He's really great at clearing out large groups of enemy peasants, basically, or chaff. Just non-elite infantry. Can get some close-ups, hopefully, for you guys. You can see them at work. It's raining. In other Total Wars, rain hurts bow performance. We'll have to see if it does in this game also. Looks like we're losing, or well, no, we're winning that duel over there. The way health works in this game is the percentage of the circle that is colored is your health. We have a buff here that we can give for melee damage. Might want to take advantage of that. Just gonna let my champion here, he seems to be quite happy to fight all of these low-level infantry. You know, basic axe band. There's a giant mace. A giant pole mace. Now, if they're turning to fight my general, it means their backs are turned to the arrows. It means they won't be getting the benefit of their shields. At least, like, not in other Total War games. I'm gonna have my general pursue this group here. Alright. Looks like we're victorious. I kind of want him to get on his mount again. Nope. Alright, taking an overall look. I think the more casualties that we inflict, not kills but captures after the fact, the more money we get. So now that the battle is won, I'm just going to speed up this. Alright. Decisive battle. Decisive victory. Anytime you get a decisive victory in the Total War series, it's a good day. Looks like our peasants did well.
正义必胜，我等应设宴庆贺。
So we have 3 choices: ransom, seize supplies, and recruit. Seize supplies can be good for when you're on the march and deep in enemy territory, running low on supplies. 3-point replenishment is if you took a lot of casualties and you want those back. A lot of this game's recruitment rates are way lower than in previous Total War games, so this is often a really good, option. We didn't lose anybody, so we're gonna pick the 90 income ransom.
把俘虏放回去吧。
Huang Shao destroys the forces of the old ways. You get that extra
我
good
已准备好作战了。
weapon here. Shao finds those whose vision aligns with the cause. Alright, Yellow Turban Spearman Captain. That's something we can recruit later. It's not a character with a retinue. It's a group of peasants that come fully formed as their own army. It's a great way to buff up your army for cheap. Huang Shao seeks to enlighten more to the cause. Alright, capture and occupy any settlement. Well, I definitely plan on doing that with this trade port up here.
根壮而后，枝叶繁茂。
Right click to transfer.
满怀信
I
念，奋
definitely
力一
want to
战，
transfer. I want to unify these 2 groups.
统一行进。
Merging, transfer.
廉洁奉公，忍受
Right.
苦难。
Well, let's take them,
出
put
发，
them in the town. Let's march stance
振
them
作起来
in，there.
正在行军。
Alright, so my plan long term is to avoid the north and the middle and just get a good base of people to the east and the south. I kind of want to take Kongrong out of the picture and just immediately eliminate him. He always goes on about his lineage to Confucius and his elaborate works. Let's see who, in the end, has the last say. I don't know if that's a play on Confucius say jokes, but it certainly seems to be.
我军需要休整。
Alright. So we have chosen our reform. We have various commanders that require or that can be upgraded. Looks like we're ready to end our turn. Alright, looks like we're gonna get some good military supplies from that. Just reading these army effects for the new military supplies window. Very interesting group.
折而不摧。
We can recruit someone else. This person is not very satisfied. Is our higher court position, they lack purpose. Let's give him something to do, shall we? Seems like a good plan. All of these have harmony with each other. That's great. We can make them all friends kind of early in the group. The 3 amigos, so to speak. Let's see what he's good at. He has heart piercing melee damage. Heart piercing melee damage. Immobilize. Debuff. Could be very nice. Commanding shout. Increased melee damage. for everyone, 10%, and melee charge bonus, so he's going to be good leading the charge of our group.
大人，有何吩咐？参见大人。
I think he has identical skills to...
坚如盾牌，势如利刃。
Oh no, he does not. Alright, so this group also has melee armor piercing. Wisdom of the River. Huh, interesting. Minus 100% melee vision, minus 100% armor for everyone in 50 meters. Very nice debuff. As well as focus. 10% range damage, 10% ranged armor piercing damage. Excellent, 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 excellent. Okie doke. I think I'm gonna get some peasant archers here. They're very cheap. Archers are so strong in the early game that I think it'd be an excellent idea. Gonna cut into our profits a little bit, but I think if we end up fighting over here and over here, it's gonna be well worth it to kind of help our guys out. Alright, well, that should do it for our first few turns. Alright guys, well. I think, so Zeus asks, going for mostly combat strength or culture for this run. I think mostly culture. My idea is to get ourselves a nice little corner of the map on the right and the bottom, kind of hole up here and weather the storm, and kind of do what's called playing tall in 4X games, which is expand, exploit, explore, exterminate. And one of the strategies is to play very wealthy, research a lot, but don't expand your footprint too much. Don't overextend yourself. And this will allow you to create a great deal of wealth and outspend your opponents, outspend your enemies. So that's kind of what I'm considering doing. Right now, we're just going to get this military supplies, kind of charge up our potential to jump out at the enemy, and then obviously get everyone up to full strength. We're at 63 of 120 unit strength right here, and we'd like to see that go quite a bit higher. We're just going to burn through this winter. I don't want to be campaigning in the middle of winter. Always a bad idea. If you're ever in 190 AD China and someone tells you to march out in the middle of winter with low supplies, just go ahead and tell them no. That'll go over real well. For characters, let's see if we can give people some fancy swords here. We have our Machian, which is 687 melee damage and 507 armor piercing, 24 attack rate, but it's minus 6 expertise plus 9 instinct. We have an upgraded version of that. It's minus 9 expertise plus 15 instinct, 1k melee damage base. That's very, very nice. Yeah. Kaishak says, you can't fight Mother Russia, and that is true. The winter is not an opponent that humans are very good at defeating. Alright, charge bonus, plus 4 cunning. I'm going to enjoy putting this one on Huang Shao because the plus 10 charge bonus will help him potentially in duels, and plus 4 cunning will help his already very high cunning for ammunition. And I hope to have him have almost all of my archers, partially because he has plus 15 ammunition for all units, as well as buff. I believe that it is... where is it? It's a certain buff that gives him a AoE damage buff for archers. +4 authority and +4 satisfaction. Having high authority could be very good for my leader, because if his authority is high, the satisfaction will be faction-wide satisfaction increase. Let's try to see if we could do that. Still at +3. Doesn't really change anything one way or another. Might actually give it to the person who does have low satisfaction in my group. At least he has a purpose now, but he does desire that higher court position. And he's fiery, and he's ambitious, and he has an increased penalty from the desire for higher office. He just wants it so bad that he's in danger of misbehaving and, you know, potentially getting himself and us killed. Not a great look. Commoner's protective garments. Spear. Could give him a refined military great axe. That might be good for him. -6 expertise. He doesn't have very high expertise in the first place, but he does have a high resolve. And that's what I really want to use him for. This does a huge amount of damage. 962 melee armor piercing damage compared to the 354 that we have right now with 88 melee base. It does attack less often, 20 versus 24, but that I think is absolutely worth it, especially because it's refined when the other one was just common. Alright, so that should be entertaining to watch. Now he has 2 axes, a clay axe, not for combat, and the military great axe. I do love the weapons this time period. It's absolutely beautiful. I think we can afford to kind of move out here a little bit. I believe that we'll just do encamp to give ourselves, you know, a little fort here, a little wooden fort that increases our supplies as well as our defenses, fortification. It'll give us, you know, the ability to get replenishment also. It's very nice. I want to take that trade port. I want to jump out, take that trade port, come back, take out Beihai, and really kind of shore up our flank on this side. Do we have any missions? Yellow Turban Spearman. Don't know if I'm going to do that right now. Research or reform. Greater heights are reached. I'm on my way to do that. I might make a small army over here. Doesn't look like I can do it with anyone but characters. Yeah, we'll have him annex this temple here. That's pretty much all I really want him for. That way all of my characters are employed, you know, and they're all doing something, they're all being useful. He's a writer. Gives 5 expertise, 5 cunning, and 5 authority. +1 starting rank for all recruits. Faction-wide, but only if this character is the Lord of Virtue. Okay, fair enough. He loathes superstition and admires intelligence. Very much like myself. You better start writing my book. Gongquan is a veteran. Alright, so he'll also be quite good at... well, he should be good at holding out against many enemies, but susceptible to armor-piercing damage. He's formidable. That's important. He's very wise. He has lots of expertise. Lots of cunning. That's 5 satisfaction within his local county. Seems like a cool guy. Very trustworthy, very wise, very formidable. Seems great. He can disorient people. He has ranged and armor-piercing damage. And income. So he'll probably be good for archers. Let's put some archers with him. But yeah, alright. I think that's it. I think we're gonna stop here right before the turn end. We have some exciting things going on. Gonna jump out here for trade port. We're going to take our people down here and pick up this temple. Should be a good start to our stream. Alright, stay tuned for episode 2.